The autumn leaves crunched under 7-year-old Oliver's feet as he walked hand in hand with his father through Riverside Park. David Mitchell had been dreading this moment for weeks, ever since he noticed his son starting to ask more questions about his mother, Elena. The questions had become more frequent, more pointed, and David knew he was running out of vague answers. "Dad, why doesn't Mom pick me up from school anymore?" Oliver asked, his voice small but curious. He kicked a pile of orange leaves, watching them scatter in the wind. David's heart clenched. He squeezed his son's hand a little tighter, buying himself a moment to think. The truth sat heavy on his chest, a weight he'd been carrying for 3 months now. Elena hadn't just stopped picking Oliver up from school. She'd been gone for 12 weeks. And with each passing day, David's hope of her return grew dimmer. She's taking care of some important things," David managed, the lie tasting bitter on his tongue. Oliver looked up at him with those bright green eyes, so much like his mother's. "What kind of important things?" They passed by the playground where Elena used to push Oliver on the swings for hours. David could almost see her there, her dark hair flowing in the breeze, her laugh ringing out across the park. The memory was so vivid it made his chest ache. "Grown-up things," David said, hating himself for the evasion. "Sometimes adults have to handle difficult situations." "Is she coming back for my birthday?" Oliver asked. "It's in 2 weeks. She promised we'd go to the aquarium." David stopped walking. He knelt down to Oliver's level, forcing himself to meet his son's expectant gaze. The words he needed to say lodged in his throat like stones. How could he tell his 7-year-old that he didn't know where Elena was, that she'd left one morning for work and never came home, that her phone had been disconnected, her office said she'd resigned, and even her sister claimed not to know where she'd gone? "I don't know, buddy," David whispered, the first honest thing he'd said about Elena in weeks. Oliver's face changed. The innocent curiosity shifted to something else, a flicker of understanding that no child his age should have. "Is Mom okay?" David pulled his son into a hug, holding him close. "I hope so," he said into Oliver's hair. "I really hope so." That evening, after Oliver had gone to bed, David sat in his home office, surrounded by the evidence of his desperate search. Phone records, bank statements, emails, all leading nowhere. Elena had vanished as completely as if she'd never existed at all. The only trace she'd left was the note, tucked now in his desk drawer. 3 words in her handwriting. "I'm sorry. Forgive me." He'd shown it to the police, of course. They'd taken a report, but with no signs of foul play and evidence that Elena had left voluntarily, there was little they could do. Adults had the right to disappear if they chose to. David picked up the framed photo from his desk. Their little family at the beach last summer. Elena's smile looked genuine, but now he wondered what had been hiding behind it. What secrets had she been keeping? What had driven her away from the life they'd built together? The sound of small footsteps in the hallway made him look up. Oliver stood in the doorway, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. "Dad, I can't sleep." "Come here, buddy." Oliver climbed into his lap, and David wrapped his arms around him. They sat in silence for a moment, both looking at the photo. "Do you think Mom still loves us?" Oliver asked, his voice barely above a whisper. David's throat tightened. "I'm sure she does," he said, though he wasn't sure of anything anymore. Then why did she leave? It was the question David had been asking himself every day for 3 months. The question that kept him awake at night, that haunted him through his workdays, that turned every happy memory into a puzzle he couldn't solve. "I don't know," he admitted. "Sometimes people do things we don't understand. But it's not your fault, Oliver. Whatever reason Mom had for leaving, it's not because of anything you did." Oliver was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Is it because of you?" The question hit David like a physical blow. He'd wondered the same thing countless times. Had he missed the signs? Had he not been attentive enough? Had their marriage been crumbling while he remained oblivious? "I don't know that either," he said honestly. "But what I do know is that we're going to be okay. You and me. We're a team. Right?" Oliver nodded against his chest. Right. As David carried his son back to bed, he caught sight of himself in the hallway mirror. He looked older than his 35 years, with new lines around his eyes and a weariness that seemed to have settled into his bones. Being a single parent while maintaining the fiction that Elena might return any day was exhausting. After tucking Oliver in, David returned to his office. He opened his laptop and stared at the email he'd been composing for days. It was to Elena's best friend, Sarah, who lived across the country. Sarah had been just as shocked by Elena's disappearance, but David wondered if she might know something, anything, that could help him understand. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. What could he say that he hadn't already said? He'd begged, pleaded, demanded answers. All he'd gotten was Sarah's insistence that Elena had been acting normally the last time they'd spoken, 2 weeks before she vanished. David's phone buzzed. His heart leaped, as it always did, hoping irrationally that it might be Elena. But it was just his sister, checking in as she did every few days. "How are you holding up?" Margaret's text read. "Oliver asked about her again today," he replied. "What did you tell him?" "I'm running out of lies, Maggie." The 3 dots appeared, showing she was typing. Then they disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally. Maybe it's time to tell him the truth. David stared at the message. The truth. That his mother had abandoned them without explanation. That she'd chosen to vanish from their lives. That all the bedtime stories about families staying together forever were just fairy tales. He couldn't do it. Not yet. Oliver still had hope, and David couldn't bring himself to extinguish it, because deep down, despite all evidence to the contrary, David still had hope too. Hope that Elena would walk through the door one day with an explanation that would make everything make sense. Hope that their family could be whole again. But as he sat alone in his office, surrounded by the detritus of his search, David felt that hope flickering like a candle in the wind, and he feared that Oliver's innocent questions would be the breath that finally blew it out. The house settled around him with familiar creaks and sighs. Somewhere in the walls, a clock ticked steadily, marking the passage of time. Another day without Elena. Another day of pretending. Another day of David's silence in the face of his son's questions. A silence that confirmed what he couldn't bring himself to say aloud, that sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest, and sometimes they never come back. 2 weeks later, Oliver's 8th birthday arrived with a gray sky that threatened rain. David had done his best to make it special. Balloons filled the living room. A chocolate cake with race car decorations waited in the kitchen, and wrapped presents sat piled on the coffee table. But the effort felt hollow, like a play where the main actor had failed to show up. Oliver sat at the kitchen table, still in his pajamas, staring at the empty chair where Elena used to sit. David watched him from the doorway, his heart breaking a little more with each passing second. "Happy birthday, buddy," David said, forcing cheer into his voice. Oliver looked up and managed a small smile. "Thanks, Dad. So, birthday boy, what do you want for breakfast? Pancakes? Waffles? Both? Can we wait a little bit?" Oliver asked. "Maybe Mom will come." David felt the familiar tightness in his chest. He'd stopped jumping every time the doorbell rang. Stopped checking his phone obsessively for messages that never came. But Oliver hadn't given up yet. "How about we start with some orange juice?" David suggested, avoiding the question. As he poured the juice, his phone vibrated on the counter. His sister's name appeared on the screen. Margaret had offered to come help with the party. But David had declined. He needed to do this himself, needed to prove he could give Oliver a good birthday despite everything. "David," Margaret's voice was tense when he answered. "Have you checked your email this morning?" "No. Why?" "Sarah forwarded me something." Elena sent her an email." David's hand tightened on the phone. He glanced at Oliver, who was now drawing patterns in the condensation on his juice glass. "I'll call you back," he whispered, ending the call. He stepped into the hallway and opened his email with trembling fingers. There it was, forwarded from Sarah with a simple message. "She asked me not to share this, but you need to see it." The original email was dated 2 days ago. David's eyes scanned Elena's words, each one hitting him like a small bomb. Sarah, I know David has been contacting you. Please don't tell him I've reached out. I'm safe. But I can't come back. Not now. Maybe not ever. There are things about my past that I never told him, things that have caught up with me. It's better for them if I stay away. Safer. Please make sure Oliver knows I love him. That leaving was the hardest thing I've ever done. That every day away from him is agony. But sometimes loving someone means protecting them. Even if they never understand. Even if they hate you for it. David read it 3 times, his mind reeling. Things from her past? Safer? What did that mean? He'd thought he knew everything about Elena. They'd been together for 10 years, married for 8. How could there be secrets so terrible that abandoning her family seemed like the only option? Dad? Oliver's voice called from the kitchen. Can we open presents now? David quickly composed himself and returned to the kitchen. Of course we can. They moved to the living room, where Oliver unwrapped his gifts with subdued enthusiasm. A new bike helmet, some books, a science kit. All things from his wish list. But David could see him glancing at the door between each present, still hoping. The doorbell rang just as Oliver was opening his last gift. The boy jumped up, his face lighting with hope. Maybe that's... But when David opened the door, it was just Mrs. Chen from next door, holding a wrapped present and a sad smile. Word had gotten around the neighborhood about Elena's absence, though David had never explicitly told anyone the truth. Happy birthday, Oliver, Mrs. Chen said warmly. I thought you might like this. Oliver thanked her politely and added the gift to his pile. After she left, he returned to the couch, his momentary excitement extinguished. Dad, he said quietly, can I ask you something? David sat beside him. Anything. Did Mom leave because of something I did? Because I remember. I was bad sometimes. I didn't always clean my room. And that time I broke her favorite vase. Oh, Oliver, no. David pulled him close. This isn't about anything you did. You're a wonderful kid. The best son anyone could ask for. Then why? Oliver's voice cracked. Why would she miss my birthday? David thought about the email, about Elena's cryptic words, protection. Safety. Secrets from the past. None of it made sense. But he couldn't burden Oliver with these adult mysteries. I think, he said slowly, that sometimes grown-ups have problems that are too big and complicated to explain, and sometimes they make choices that hurt the people they love, even when they don't mean to. But she promised, Oliver whispered. She promised we'd go to the aquarium. I know. David kissed the top of his son's head. Tell you what. How about we go to the aquarium anyway? Just you and me? Oliver considered this. Okay, he said finally. But can we get the dolphin ice cream? Mom always let me get the dolphin ice cream. We can get 2 dolphin ice creams, David promised. Later, as they walked through the aquarium, David watched Oliver press his face against the glass of the shark tank. The boy seemed smaller somehow, as if Elena's absence had diminished him. The chatter that usually filled their outings had been replaced by a contemplative silence that didn't belong on an 8-year-old. They were watching the sea otters when Oliver spoke again. Dad, do you think Mom is watching otters somewhere else? Maybe, David said, though the email suggested Elena was focused on very different things. I hope she is, Oliver said. I hope she's not too sad. David's phone buzzed. Another text from Margaret. We need to talk. Can you come by tonight after Oliver's asleep? He typed back a quick agreement, then put his phone away. Whatever his sister had learned, it could wait. Today was about Oliver. They had lunch at the aquarium cafe. Fish-shaped sandwiches and, as promised, dolphin ice cream. Oliver even smiled a few times, especially when a seal performed tricks during the afternoon show. But as they prepared to leave, he turned to David with a serious expression. Dad, I've been thinking. About what? About Mom. And I decided something. Oliver squared his small shoulders. David knelt down. You can always ask me anything. You know that, right? I know. But I can see it makes you sad when I ask, and you don't know the answers anyway. Oliver's perception, far too sharp for his age, cut straight through David's attempts at protection. So I'll wait. Maybe she'll come back and tell us herself. Or maybe she won't. But either way, we're okay, right? You and me? Yeah, buddy, David managed through the lump in his throat. We're okay. That night, after birthday cake and a movie, after Oliver had finally fallen asleep surrounded by his new toys, David drove to Margaret's house. His sister met him at the door with a glass of wine already in hand. You look terrible, she said with characteristic bluntness. Thanks. You said we needed to talk? They settled in her living room, and Margaret pulled out a folder. I hired a private investigator, she said, without preamble. Maggie, I told you not to. Just listen. She opened the folder. Elena Mitchell doesn't exist. David stared at her. That identity only goes back 12 years. Before that, nothing. No birth certificate, no school records, no family history. Elena Mitchell appeared out of nowhere when she was 22 years old. The room seemed to tilt. David grabbed the folder, scanning the investigator's report. It was all there in black and white. The woman he'd married, the mother of his child, was a ghost before 2013. There's more, Margaret said gently. The investigator found a news article from 2012. A family in Ohio, parents and 2 children, killed in what police called a home invasion. The teenager daughter was never found. Her name was Elena Kowalski. David looked at the old newspaper photo. The quality was poor, but there was something familiar about the teenage girl's eyes. You think? I think your wife witnessed something terrible. I think she's been running from it for 12 years. And I think whatever she's been running from finally caught up with her. David set down the folder with shaking hands. All those years together, and he'd never really known her at all. The woman who'd laughed at his jokes, who'd sung Oliver to sleep, who'd promised to grow old with him. She'd been carrying this secret the entire time. What do I do with this? He asked. You protect Oliver, Margaret said firmly. If Elena left to keep you both safe, then you respect that. You let her go. But as David drove home through the dark streets, he knew it wasn't that simple. How could he let go of someone he'd never really had? How could he mourn a loss when he didn't even know what he'd lost? Oliver was still sleeping when he got home, clutching the stuffed whale they'd bought at the aquarium. David stood in the doorway, watching his son's peaceful face. Tomorrow there would be more questions, more silences, more of this terrible weight of not knowing. But tonight, Oliver had made a choice. He'd chosen to stop asking, to accept the uncertainty, to move forward with just the 2 of them. At 8 years old, he'd shown more courage than David had managed in 3 months. David closed the door quietly and went to his office. He pulled out Elena's note again. I'm sorry. Forgive me. The words had new meaning now. She wasn't just sorry for leaving. She was sorry for the lie their entire life had been built on. He opened his laptop and began typing an email to Sarah. Not asking for answers this time, but delivering a message. If you hear from her again, tell her we're safe. Tell her Oliver is brave and strong and kind. Tell her we'll be okay. And tell her she's forgiven. He hit send before he could change his mind. Then he deleted the investigator's report, shredded the newspaper articles, and threw away the folder. Some secrets, he decided, were meant to stay buried. Some questions were better left unasked. Tomorrow, he and Oliver would start fresh. No more waiting for Elena to walk through the door. No more pretending she might return. Just a father and son, making their way in the world together, carrying their love for her like a secret of their own. 6 months had passed since Oliver's birthday, and winter had settled over the city like a blanket. David stood at the kitchen window, watching his son build a snowman in the backyard. Oliver worked methodically, rolling the snow into perfect spheres, his tongue poking out in concentration. He'd grown 2 inches since summer, and his face had lost some of its little boy roundness. The house had changed too. Elena's things were gone now, packed away in boxes in the attic. Not thrown away, David couldn't bring himself to do that, but removed from daily view. The empty spaces had been filled with new memories. Oliver's art projects, photos from their camping trip, a trophy from his soccer team. "Dad, come help!" Oliver called, waving him outside. David grabbed his coat and joined his son in the yard. Together, they lifted the snowman's head into place, and Oliver produced a carrot from his pocket for the nose. "He needs a name," Oliver declared. "What about Robert? Robert the snowman?" Oliver giggled. "That's boring, Dad." It was good to hear him laugh. The sound had been rare in those first months. But lately, it came easier. They both had learned to carry their grief more lightly. As they added stick arms to their creation, Mrs. Chen appeared at the fence. "David, there's someone at your front door. A woman." "She said she's an old friend?" David's heart stuttered. "Could it be?" "Thanks, Mrs. Chen." "Oliver, stay here for a minute." "Okay." He walked through the house slowly, his pulse racing. Through the frosted glass of the front door, he could see a figure waiting. He took a deep breath and opened it. It wasn't Elena. The woman on his doorstep was older, with graying hair and tired eyes. She looked nervous, clutching a manila envelope to her chest. "David Mitchell?" she asked. "Yes? My name is Carol Kowalski. I think you were married to my niece." David felt the world shift beneath his feet. "You should come in." He led her to the living room, his mind racing. Elena's family, the family that had supposedly died in that home invasion. "I'm sorry to show up like this," Carol said, settling nervously on the couch. "I've been trying to decide whether to come for months. But I thought you deserved to know the truth." "Elena said her family was dead," David said carefully. Carol's face crumpled slightly. That's what she needed to believe. What we all agreed she should believe. It was safer that way. "I don't understand." Carol opened the envelope and pulled out a photograph. It showed a happy family. Parents, 2 teenagers, and a younger boy. David recognized Elena immediately, though she couldn't have been more than 16. "My brother's family," Carol explained. "That's Elena. Though that wasn't her name then. She was Anna. Anna Kowalski. The newspaper said they were killed. That she went missing. That's what we wanted people to think." Carol took a shaky breath. "My brother, Michael, was a federal prosecutor. He was building a case against some very dangerous people. One night, they came to the house." She paused, struggling with the memory. "Anna was at a friend's house that night. She came home to find. She saw things no teenager should see. But she also saw faces. License plates. Details that could help convict the men who did it. She witnessed the murder of her family," David said. The full horror of it sinking in. She became the key witness. But these weren't ordinary criminals. They had connections everywhere. The FBI put her in witness protection immediately. New name, new life, strict orders never to contact anyone from her past. David thought of Elena. Anna. At 22. Starting college with a manufactured history. Carrying the weight of her family's murder alone. But she broke protocol, Carol continued. She fell in love, got married, had a child, built a life, and for years, it seemed safe. The men who killed my brother were convicted, sent to prison for life. What changed? One of them was released 2 years ago. Some technicality with the evidence. And he started looking for the witness who put him away. Carol's voice dropped. Anna got word that he was close to finding her. That's why she ran. To protect you and your son. David felt tears stinging his eyes. All those months of wondering, of feeling betrayed and abandoned. Elena hadn't left because she didn't love them. She'd left because she loved them too much to let her past destroy their future. Where is she now? He asked. I don't know. The marshals relocated her again. New name, new place. It's like she never existed. Carol reached into the envelope again, But she asked me to give you this, if I ever found the courage to come here. It was a letter, sealed, with David's name on it. His hands shook as he opened it. My dearest David, it began, in Elena's familiar handwriting. By the time you read this, Carol will have told you everything. I'm so sorry for the lies, for the deception, for leaving without explanation. But mostly I'm sorry that my past has stolen our future. You gave me 8 years of happiness I never thought I'd have. You showed me it was possible to love again after losing everything. And Oliver, our beautiful, brilliant boy. He healed parts of me I thought were broken forever. I know you must be angry. You have every right to be. I built our life on a foundation of lies. And when it crumbled, I left you to clean up the pieces alone. But please believe that every moment of joy, every I love you, every dream we shared, all of that was real. Anna Kowalski might have been a fiction, but the woman who loved you was the truest version of myself I've ever been. I watch the news sometimes, hoping for glimpses of our city. I imagine Oliver getting taller, losing teeth, learning to ride the bike we bought him. I imagine you teaching him to be the kind, patient man you are. And I imagine him asking about me less and less, until I become just a story from when he was small. That's as it should be. You both deserve a life free from the shadows that follow me. You deserve truth and safety, and the chance to be happy without looking over your shoulders. Tell Oliver I love him. Tell him I think of him every day. Tell him that leaving him was like cutting out my own heart. But I'd do it again to keep him safe. And when he's older, if he wants to understand, share this letter with him. As for you, my love, please don't wait for me. Find someone who can give you the complete truth, who doesn't come with dangerous ghosts. Be happy. That's all I want for you. The happiness I couldn't give you. All my love, always. Elena, Anna. David was crying openly by the time he finished reading. Carol sat quietly, giving him space for his grief. Can I write back to her? He asked finally. Carol shook her head. It's not safe. For any of you. This visit is already more than I should have risked. Through the window, David could see Oliver still playing in the snow. His son had accepted Elena's absence with a grace that still amazed him. Children, it seemed, were better at letting go than adults. Thank you for coming, David said. For telling me the truth. Carol stood to leave, then paused. She talked about you both constantly in those early years of protection. Even then, before she met you, she carried your names in her heart. David, her future husband. Oliver, her future son, like she was willing you into existence through hope alone. After Carol left, David sat with the letter for a long time. Then he went to his office and pulled out a box from the closet. Inside were things he'd saved. Elena's favorite scarf, photos from their wedding, Oliver's baby book that she'd meticulously filled out. He added the letter to the collection, then sealed the box again. Someday, when Oliver was older, they would open it together. He would tell his son the truth, that his mother was brave and selfless, and loved him more than her own life. That sometimes heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they just quietly disappear to keep their loved ones safe. But not today. Today, Oliver was 8 and building snowmen and learning to be happy again. David returned to the yard, where Oliver had started on a second snow figure. Who's this one? David asked. It's a snow mom for Robert, Oliver explained, so he won't be lonely. David's throat tightened. That's thoughtful of you. Yeah. But she's going to melt when spring comes, Oliver said matter-of-factly. That's okay, though. Robert will remember her. Sometimes, David thought, children understood more than adults gave them credit for. They worked together in comfortable silence, building their snow family. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Oliver slipped his mittened hand into David's. Dad? Yeah, buddy? I'm glad we have each other. Me too, David said, squeezing his hand. Me too. That night, after Oliver was asleep, David stood in his son's doorway one more time. The nightlight cast soft shadows on the wall, and Oliver's breathing was deep and even. On his nightstand sat a photo. David and Oliver at the beach last summer, building sandcastles. Just the two of them, but somehow complete. David thought about Elena somewhere out there, living under another name, carrying her love for them like a secret weight. He hoped she had found some measure of peace. He hoped she knew that they were okay. The next morning brought fresh snow, covering the footprints in the yard, making everything new again. Oliver bounded into David's room at dawn, excited about a school project he'd been working on. "It's about families," he explained, spreading papers across the bed. "I wrote about us." David read his son's careful handwriting. "My family is me and my dad. We take care of each other. Sometimes, families look different than you expect, but that doesn't make them less special. Love is what makes a family, not the number of people in it." "Is it good?" Oliver asked anxiously. "It's perfect," David said, meaning it with his whole heart. As Oliver ran off to get ready for school, David made breakfast and packed lunches, the morning routine flowing smoothly. The sharp edge of grief had dulled into something manageable, a part of him now rather than something that threatened to consume him. Outside, the Snow family stood guard in the yard, temporary monuments to resilience and hope. They would melt, as Oliver had predicted, but they would have served their purpose, bringing joy to a winter morning, creating a memory, proving that beauty could be built even after loss. The school bus arrived, and Oliver hugged David goodbye. "Love you, Dad. Love you too, buddy. Have a great day." David watched the bus disappear around the corner, then went back inside to start his own day. There was work to be done, a life to be lived, a future to be built, and somewhere, in another life, under another name, Elena was doing the same, carrying their love forward, even in absence. The silence that had once confirmed everyone's worst fears had transformed into something else. It had become a testament to love's most difficult choice. The choice to let go, to sacrifice one's own happiness for the safety of those we cherish most. And in that silence, David finally found his answer to the question Oliver no longer asked. Elena hadn't left because she didn't love them. She had left because she loved them more than they could ever know. And that love, invisible but unbreakable, would connect them always. A family separated by circumstance, but bound by something stronger than presence. Love, as Oliver had written, is what makes a family. And their love, complicated and painful and beautiful, would endure even this.